Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session, which is part of Client Earth's yearly summit. We will be speaking today about the Mediterranean on the eve of World Ocean Day and about the threats that the Med is facing and the potential solution to tackle them. My name is Isabel Leal. I am a communication and environmental policy professional. I work on ocean governance issues and I collaborate with Client Earth on a number of portfolios. And I really wanted to thank the organization for the opportunity to moderate this experts panel today. We're going to have an interactive dialogue following the discussion between the panel members, and we look forward to your feedback. We encourage you to use the questions box that you have available to send us your feedback and questions that will be addressed by the panel members on the second part of this session. The Mediterranean, it's a marine biodiversity hotspot with a rich array of species and ecosystems that thrive within its waters. But it's actually much more than that. It nurtures millions of people across continents, and for many of us, it's anchored in our DNA and a crucial part of our history. However, it's facing numerous threats from climate change, biodiversity loss, destructive fishing practices, and pollution. Just to give a small example, or not that small, we started this week celebrating World Environment Day, and we learned that every year 507,000 tons of plastics waste are dumped in the Med, according to estimates by the Union for the Mediterranean. Client Earth is working in the Mediterranean, focusing on marine biodiversity conservation and protection. The teams strive to ensure the protection of species and habitats from pressures such as oil and gas exploitation and exploration, destructive fishing practices, and nutrient runoff from intensive agriculture. A core part of the team's work focuses on the designation and effective management of marine protected areas, which is an issue that we will be exploring today. We welcome today Puri Canals, a respected professor and biologist who is the president of MEDPAN, the Mediterranean Network of Marine Protected Areas Managers. Hola, Puri.
Hola.
We have also with us Safesh Kizilkaya, who is the president of the Mediterranean Conservation Society in Turkey. Hello, Safesh. Nice to see you here. And we also have Pablo Rodriguez Ros, who's an environmental scientist and is the lead project coordinator at the Mariles Foundation in the Balearic Islands.
Hi, everyone.
So, hola, Pablo. So welcome to the three of you. Thank you so much for being here. And I'd like to start with the first question for you, which is directly related to your area of expertise. And I referred before to the crisis that the Mediterranean is facing. So can we save the Med from this escalating and numerous crises? And how can marine protected areas and marine reserves help? I'd like for you to introduce yourselves at the beginning of the questions. And I'd like to give the floor first to Puri Canals, then Safesh, and then Pablo for 5 minutes each to answer the question. So Puri, please go ahead.
Thank you, Isabel. Well, I'm Puri Canals. I'm the president of the Mediterranean Network of Marine Protected Areas Managers, normally called MEDPAN. I also work as consultant and currently I'm the coordinator of the EU Ocean Governance Project for Marine Protected Areas that operates across the Atlantic and Southeast Asia. And in both cases, what I work is connecting people that is in charge of managing those marine protected areas. I'm going to respond to your question, Isabel. Yes, can we save the Mediterranean? Yes, we can. The question is if we want to do the right actions. It's absolutely possible. There is no doubt about. The methodology is just avoiding the impacts that we are now creating, such as the one on the on the plastic debris that you mentioned and many other things that we are just putting in the Mediterranean that are unnecessary and are damaging the ecosystem. And this is avoiding one actions and doing other actions. And among the actions that we should do to take care of the Mediterranean, for me, the most relevant is marine protected areas. And what are marine protected areas and what do they represent for the Mediterranean? So marine protected areas are spaces in the sea, in this case, the Mediterranean, in which we take specific care of the ecosystems and the species. So, and this is very easy to say, and there are many ways of different ways to establish marine protected areas. But if we look today at the surface of the Mediterranean, which is covered by some kind of measure to restrict uncontrolled activity, we see that we have 8.4% of the surface. This is what we see in a map. But if we look at the sites that are put in a map as potentially protected, and we see the reality, we observe that the big majority are not functioning as a real protected area because despite we declare that the zones are important, we continue doing some activities that are not recommended and that are creating problems to the species and to the habitats. In fact, less than 0.01%, which is absolutely ridiculous, are really under strong protection, what we consider areas in which we don't go, we don't take anything, and those areas with no extraction and no disturbance are really, really insignificant. And from one extreme to the other one, what we need is to really ensure that certain parts of the Mediterranean, as big as possible, may be taken into this condition of not being disturbed in order to guarantee that the ecological process are surviving and are developed properly. So one of the big advantages of working in the marine area is that the connectivity is completely guaranteed. So there's not like in land that sometimes the connectivity between species and habitats may be really difficult because we put barriers. In the water is not the case, but this plays in two senses. It plays in favor. So if we protect an area, most of the species and larvae may be distributed around and reach very far distances, but it also operates in the wrong sense, means that if you create a problem around a marine protected area and sometimes far away of the marine protected area, this problem may also reach the protected area and affect those ecosystems and those species. So when we talk about establishing marine protected areas, we need to take into consideration this connectivity as part of the management actions that we need to do. The main problem today is that the big majority of marine protected areas have very soft management or even no management at all. Most of half of those marine protected areas that I mentioned, it is 8.4, have no management plans, and the big majority have a very low, resources, human resources in terms of people well trained, and economic resources to really do the appropriate monitoring and the appropriate measures to take care of the marine protected area. So this is the landscape, but this is a landscape that is determined by us as humans. It's not nature what provides this. If we just invest more resources, we will have the capacity to manage properly. If we create more marine protected areas and we manage properly, we will have the capacity to really stop this degradation. There are aspects of the degradation that are more difficult, for instance, that comes from climate change, but even the marine protected areas might work as laboratories that allows us to really understand what are the impacts and damages coming from climate change, because we cannot control, from those that coming from other human activities. But we need absolutely to manage them properly. Otherwise, everything is mixed and it's very difficult to take conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you, Puri. That was very insightful, and I totally agree on the question of willingness and better management to save the Med and better protect it. Safesh, it's your turn now.
Thank you, Isabel. Hello again. My name is Zafer. I am the president and founder of Mediterranean Conservation Society. We work in southwestern part of Turkey, creating fully and highly protected MPAs, managing, enforcing, and monitoring them. So the question is, can we save the Met? Puri gave a cruel numbers like 0.01% under, real protection. That is the real question we need to ask. Do we want more or not? What we have done in the last 20 years, during so many meetings, so many forums, we put targets. Now we have even more ambitious targets. But in reality, does a fish living in the sea recognize that we are doing something good or not? Let's talk about the reality. Right now, when we are giving this speech, thousands of bottom trawlers, another maybe 50, 100,000 of purseaners are just getting every single species left in the Mediterranean. Can we say the Met? Yes. We have a great example. In 2008, in Gökova Bay, according to our big research from all the way to Spain to Turkey, Gökova Bay came out to be the place with least fish in Mediterranean, only with 4-gram fish per square meter. And the amazing part is the white grouper, Ephenephalus ayanus, was 40% of the whole livelihood of local community at that time. And it collapsed to almost zero. In 2010, we created 6 fully protected areas plus 300 square kilometers of huge, highly protected areas closed for purseaners and bottom trawlers. Just in 3 years, the fish biomass within the protected areas just, quadruple, now it's maybe more than 10 times. And the livelihood of small-scale community increased more than, 6 to 700%. I just got the numbers yesterday from the cooperatives. Right now, the Ephenephalus ayanus is more than 50% of the income of whole fishery cooperatives. So it is possible, the fishers are making more money, catching more fish, but it is not only possible with putting, marine protected areas without any management plan, without any enforcement, without any fully protected areas. Yes, the solution is fully protected areas, connectivity, but these fully protected areas should be also in a very big, highly protected areas. There should be no purseaners. There should be no bottom trawlers. We have to stop this bottom trawlers craziness. Nobody can monitor them. There is no transparency. Right now, maybe hundreds of them just, catching fish in illegal waters, in illegal way, in illegal depth. So there's no transparency. As a public citizen, you cannot monitor them. Nobody can do anything. So we have to change our attitude about those. And when we do this, and when we do the enforcement, because we are doing the enforcement over 10 years, we are right in the forefront of, protecting the sea. We just see how many people, which industries are coming, as an illegal fishers. And there's a big economy on this. And as the day passes, professional recreational fishers, which is a new industry right now, their numbers are countless. Nobody knows how many are they and what type of fishing gear they have been using. So, on one side, we have bottom trawlers and purseaners, which left nothing. And when we lost all the apex predators on the top of the food chain, then we are losing, the resilience of the marine environment against invasive species. The rabbit fishes, invasive rabbit fishes coming from Suez Canal in 1950s to Eastern Mediterranean, right now grazed entire macroalgae ecosystem in Turkish waters. It is like you are waking up tomorrow and there is no trees left in Europe. But this is happening underwater and nobody notices it. And once we lose that much macroalgae cover, we lose all the nursery grounds, feeding grounds for small invertebrates, fishes. It's probably the ever biggest biodiversity loss in Mediterranean ever happened. So once we lose the apex predators, then the more invasives comes, and there is no barrier, there is no preying pressure on those invasive species. So Eastern Mediterranean is just turning into a kind of tropical sea. Right now, there are almost 10 invasive fish species which are edible. We have a big campaign over for 5 years. We have been buying those fishes from the small-scale community, without any question, and we are giving them quite a good price, and we are just selling them to the high-end restaurants, and other restaurants would like to put their menu. So we have to fight something. And according to our monitoring program, within fully protected areas, there are 15% less invasive species biomass compared to the non-protected areas. So this proves that if we have the apex predators, big fishes within the fully protected areas, they also put a preying pressure on the invasive species. That is the solution. But when you look at it, how much area? 0.01. And who is protecting that? So that is the question. We have to do something about it. 2 months ago, in eastern part of Turkey, Mersin, the Fisheries Union president declared that they're asking more fishing gears allowed by the government on board. This elder guy, still believes that the problem they are not catching enough fish is less gear on their board. If they have 20 kilometers of fishing net, he believes that he will catch more fish. He has no clue about the ecosystem. And we just gave entire future of the oceans on these people. Look at this. Entire fishing fleets in the world right now responsible for the future of the oceans while we are talking here. So there must be some really cruel, really immediate step we should take, preventing the impact of illegal or legal, industry on the fish stocks, which nothing left, less than 10% left. And, fully protected areas are the only solutions we covered with the highly protected areas. So we don't need 30%. We don't need 8%. Let's concentrate on the fully and highly protected areas. If we can make it to 1 or 2% before 2030, it will be a huge accomplishment for Mediterranean. So just concentrate on this. Just try to convince fishers. Just try to convince all the other stakeholders, and most importantly, government officials, that we need more fully and highly protected areas. Then we will start protecting and monitoring all these areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Safesh. I also take your point of urgently and effectively addressing IUU and about the domino effect of the consequences of not enforcing protection as we should. Pablo, it's your turn, if you may.
Hi, everyone. So, my name is Pablo Rodriguez. I work for Mariles Foundation here in the Balearic Islands, and I focus instead on the Eastern Mediterranean Sea in the Western Mediterranean Sea. Currently, we are working on a campaign to actually pursue the same goals my colleagues here said. So we're deeply concerned also about the low quantity of fully protected areas. So, for example, in the Balearic Islands, it's like 0.2. We recently proposed a pact for the government, for the regional government here on the Balearic Islands, in order to protect the 10% fully protected of the Balearic Sea by 2030. Apparently, all parties agree, but we'll see what's happened the next 7 years. So, keeping with the same thoughts that my colleagues just said, so when we talk about fully protection, we need to be aware of what we mean, because we don't want to end up in paper parks, as Puri Canal said in the beginning too. So, for example, when you debate with I'm talking from the NGO side, so we talk with scientists and also with politicians, and when you talk with them about this, everyone is like they have their own opinion of what is a highly protected area, or a fully protected area, better said. So, for example, some of them, they say that 10% is quite low. I agree with Safir that he was saying that, well, if we achieve a 2% of fully protection, it will be great. I agree on that. But some people think that maybe from the NGO side, that maybe 10% is quite low, and we need to aim to a 30% of fully protection in the Mediterranean Sea by 2030, which is quite not realistic from my point of view. Also, we need proper, in Spain, we call them management plans. So if you declare an area, if you draw a marine protected area on the map, and you don't monitorize that properly or regulate the activities, so you are not protecting anything, and we are facing paper parks again. There is also diversity on the concepts, on definitions about the highly protected areas, right? So for example, some people, many of us, we agree on the UECN criteria 1A and 1B that we must pursue those definitions. But we fully agree from Maria's Foundation, for our work, that we need to pursue those goals. And actually, if we're talking a little bit about at the European level, so in the strategy for biodiversity in the European Union, they have proposed to protect the 30% of the ocean by 2030, but they haven't said yet what they want to do, or if they want to achieve the 10% goal, right? And they left that on the hands on every state member. Now every state member is proposing what they think is going to be that fully protected areas, but the criteria from every country differs a lot. So I think we have a problem. I mean, I agree with my colleagues, and I have very little to add because I agree on pretty much everything. I just wanted to highlight, in order to speed up the conversation and giving the floor to the participants to ask some questions, that we are lacking of collaboration. We're lacking of international collaboration, but also international collaboration. So we for example, from our side, in the Western Mediterranean Sea, so we find that typically, I mean, even between NGOs or even between NGOs, we don't have a common strategy, and I think we need to gather in order to achieve these goals. I mean, the Mediterranean Sea is suffering a lot, as my colleague said, and we need to run fast. We need to act urgently, and I think the coordination in this line is essential. I haven't used the 5 minutes, but I think it will be helpful for all of you in order to ask some questions.
Thank you, Pablo. I think also that the urgent need for international collaboration and cooperation, it's key to break the silos, and also your point about going beyond the numbers and really talk about specific strategies to be put in motion. I actually have another question that we would like to explore today, and it's whether in your view, whether the Mediterranean can be a model for conservation and protection. Some of you have already addressed the question top line on your answers, but I would like you to explore further in the next 3 minutes each. And just to follow the same order, I'd like to give the floor first to Puri, then Safesh, and then finally Pablo.
Yeah, I think this is a very important question, and it's connected with the last words of Pablo about cooperation. So the only way to really succeed on this objective of protecting the Mediterranean is by cooperating. There is no other manner. So forget if you have other inventions. We necessarily need to cooperate because everything is connected in the sea, and because this is a closed sea, and all what happens around in the basin is affecting the quality, the waters and life. So we need really to put the effort in cooperating. So I can talk about the experience of MEDPAN, and Zafer knows very, very well, and we also collaborate with Marillas for a long time. So when we created MEDPAN in 2009, there was very few cooperation targeting marine protected areas. There were other processes, but on marine protection was very few cooperation. And it was not so easy because everyone was doing its own activities and everyone was just very close. And the big effort at the beginning was to create a space in which managers, especially managers, but not only managers, also other actors, other institutions, NGOs could also feel a space for cooperating and sharing. The first thing we did was to explore what was already done in the Mediterranean, what was missing, what were the gaps that were important to be filled to respond to the protection of marine protected areas. And from there, we create our program of activity and our strategy to really fill those gaps, but allow those actors that were already doing good job, continue with the good job and just complementing. So this allow in 10 years to create a system that help a lot. I'm not saying that we did everything because the problem is still there. It's obvious that it's not enough with MEDPAN, but it shows that in this region, we can create cooperative processes. I remember when I joined MEP, and most of my friends said, okay, why are you accepting such a stupid objective? Because in the Mediterranean, cooperation will never happen. We have been fighting for 10,000 years across the rivers, the borders. No, it might change, and we really need to work with people from many different countries, even countries that are in very bad relationship in terms of the governments, but people on the ground or people on the water, they are not so much on this philosophy. They are aware that the marine turtle today is in this country, and in 2 hours is going to be in another country. It's the same marine turtle, it's the same fish, it's the same ecological processes. So it's very important to create spaces for sharing data, sharing knowledge, and that's what we do as a network of marine protected areas managers. And we are also sharing this experience beyond the Mediterranean. Today, the experience of the Mediterranean with this network is applied and is useful to other networks in other regions of the world, but it's obviously is not enough. We need to enlarge the cooperation to other sectors, from also the science sector. It's very important. All the knowledge, to put the knowledge to the service of informing the right decisions. And yeah, at the end, there will be always some politicians willing to fight, but many other people are not here with this aim, and we can create spaces for cooperation. And it's possible. It happens in the Mediterranean with MEDPAN. It may happen in many other situations, and unavoidable. Thank you.
Thank you, Puri. And I also agree that we need to bring in the scientists to provide the data and the information for better informed decisions as well. Safesh, your turn, if you may.
Thank you, Isabel. Yes, we need good examples, and we have those examples in different places of the Mediterranean, and they have different histories. Some of them are 30 years old, some of them are just maybe a decade old, but there are good examples. So we can easily prove that, something is being done in different scale, in different part, in different culture, and it works. And this is the real enforcement of protected areas. I mean, the fully protected areas. So as Puri mentioned, we just travel along all the Mediterranean countries in different cultures, different places, and we saw the places. People are asking me, how are we going to select this, let's say, 10% of the fully protected areas for the 2030? I say, it doesn't matter. Just close a beach. That's enough. If nobody comes there in 10 years, it's going to be a totally different place. So we need selectivity of different habitats. We need the connectivity, and we need to take politicians to show those examples to them. Definitely, there is a bitter recipe, because none of the fishers, whether small scale or industrial, have no responsibility, and they don't take any blame at all on what they have been doing. So where is this going to stop? If it is going to be the bitter recipe, we have to stop eating certain type of fish which have been caught by trawlers or gill nets. So we have to be selective. What a public, what a citizen could do, which has no expertise. Just go to the fish market, check the season, check the sizes, check the status of those fish. It's easily you can find on the internet, and don't buy it. Don't buy any illegally, caught or such bottom trawling shrimps or bycatch species. Because we have good examples, but the politicians, we don't see them. Maybe sometimes in the opening of MedCon meetings, depending on the country, they appear or not, and then they just disappear and nothing happens. So we don't have much time left. We already, import 90% of the fish we are consuming in Mediterranean. So we're just talking about 10% of the fish we have left eating here. This is not going to last either. So protecting much bigger areas in better consensus. We have a really good network, inside the MedPan. We know all the MPAs, their managers, but they're all helpless. They don't have resources. They don't have political will behind. So what could we do in this case? But we know that, after the good enforcement started, species comes back, endangered species comes back. So there's no brainer. This is so easy. We are not discovering anything. The recipe is there. Who's going to implement that? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Safesh. I do take your point on the issue of collective and individual responsibility. Also, going back to what Puri said at the beginning about the willingness to protect what we still have. Pablo, your turn.
Thank you. So, well, all very stimulating comments and thoughts. I'd say that the Mediterranean Sea can be a model for marine conservation and protection and must be a model. I think that the Mediterranean countries, we need to cooperate, we need to collaborate to assess all the marine related issues, which at some instance and in some places there are even humanitarian issues, because there is problems with some with seafood, for example, and fishing areas in the Mediterranean that support local communities. So we have many reasons to act also just from the conservation point of view, but also for humanitarian reasons. And I think that from the Mediterranean, I mean, we have to be an example for that. It is true that the governance is quite complex. So there is a lack of international cooperation, as we said, but there is also a lack of governance. For example, we need to keep pushing in participatory processes. At least in the case of Spain, I mean, sometimes we try to create marine protected areas without enough support from local communities. They are most likely to be rejected, or if they are rejected, they will not be properly protected, because people they will not aim for a higher protection for those areas. So we need to improve the participation. So we have very good examples. I'm going to tell you just one. For example, in my case, I came from the southeast of Spain in a city called Cartagena. There is one of the oldest marine protected areas in Spain there, which is called Cabo Palos and Islas Hormigas Marine Protected Area. That area was created in the 90s when I was I think I was born in the 90s also. So, I mean, maybe I wasn't born, but those days, I mean, marine protected areas, at least in my region in Spain, they were seen for example, from fishermen, all of that people, like, they were quite skeptical about that. And now everything is so happy about this area, which, by the way, includes a fully protected area inside, which was something in the beginning, as I said, very controversial. No one wanted that, but now they are seeing that it's better for the economy, it's better for everything, and also, of course, for nature. This is quite interesting because this summer I was talking with a guy which is a fisherman, and also another one which works for the diving. He has a dive center there. They were both saying that the creation of the marine reserve and the strictly protected area inside the marine reserve, that was the best. They said the best political decision made in the last 30 years. Well, they didn't say that in the beginning, but now they say that. So we need to make people participate in order that they believe that protect the ocean and protect the Mediterranean Sea with a strictly protected level. I mean, with a strict level of protection, is good for everyone. And we have good examples that we have succeeded. And this example that I'm telling you now, it wasn't just a decision by the government. It was proposed by NGOs and supported by scientists. They had a lot of pressure, but they got it, and now we have a good example there. I think at least in the Mediterranean coast of Spain, which is where I was born and live and work, I think we have good examples, but we need to be much more ambitious, because we are lucky enough. If we aim to achieve the 10% of areas with a strict protection level, we need to multiply by 50 what we have now. For example, in the Balearic Islands, we have to multiply by 50 that surface in 7 years. So it's quite a challenge, but I think we should do it, or at least try it.
Thank you, Pablo. Fully agree that encouraging participation it's key, because then people will see improvements, and they themselves also become advocates of strengthening and enforcing protection. So thank you for these insightful contributions. We're not moving into the interactive part of this session. We'd like to hear the feedback and ideas for as many as possible, for the participants and the audience. You can keep uploading your questions and your input on the question area. I do already have quite a few coming in. So the first one, it's from Pat Butchart. It's how does the new High Seas Treaty affect the movement to save the Met? May I suggest perhaps, Puri, if you would like to take on this question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this is something, this is really interesting because this is a not easy question from a juridical point of view, because the Mediterranean has no juridic high seas. So that means that initially some people think that the treaty could not apply to the Mediterranean, which is not exactly correct, but it obviously will require some legal interpretation. However, the treaty is not only high seas strictly, it's targeting international waters or waters beyond national jurisdiction, and there are waters beyond national jurisdiction in the Mediterranean. So I also give this in brackets in terms that it requires additional legal interpretation. But those waters beyond national jurisdiction deserve to be protected because they are very relevant for our common ecosystem. And what is interesting to see is that the Mediterranean has already some example of international protected areas, at least on paper. I'm talking about the Pelagos Sanctuary, which is a huge area declared by a specific agreement, the Pelagos Agreement, signed by France, Monaco, and Italy. And is an area in the Ligurian Sea that targets the protection of marine mammals, of cetaceans. So another discussion will be whether the management and the protection is effective. But in terms of a legal process, we have this example in the Mediterranean. So that means that having a global treaty now for the global ocean can only reinforce the possibilities that in the Mediterranean we establish new transboundary protected areas or new areas declared by several countries with the aim of protection.
Thank you, Puri. We have another question. Are there any other solutions that are not fully protected areas, or is this the only solution? Perhaps, Safesh, if you want to take this question.
Well, it depends what we really aim from marine protected area. So, of course, it's not the only way. We have to do something more within the fully or not, protected areas. We should stop boats anchoring on the sensitive habitats, mainly on seagrass habitats, and also the other sensitive habitats, corallogenous habitats. So, about fully protected areas are the only solution. Because why? If we keep the human exploitation away from a certain area, it will just thrive within just 10 years. So that's the solution. How could we make it other way a kind of sustainable? When we are looking at the Mediterranean, as Puri said, 0.01% fully protected areas we are talking about. What is this? It is nothing. And Mediterranean is only 1% of the world oceans. It's just a water drop. So, of course, we need more fully protected areas. We just need to keep people, exploitation, and impact away from certain areas. We are not asking the whole sea. We are just asking small pockets closer to each other, having the connectivity, having representative different habitats. That's it. That's the solution.
Thank you, Safesh. There's a question here that different people are asking in one way or another, and it's, will a simple public information campaign to the general public and the fishing industry about the depleted fish stocks be a starting point to get public support and pressure, and fishing industry cooperation to establish wider MPAs, because the person saying nothing has worked much so far. Pablo, perhaps you can take this one on, as it's a little bit related to the last point that you were making, if you may.
Yeah, well, from my point of view, we need to have some allies. We need to have everyone on board. I think so. The first part of the question regarding the public awareness on these issues, I think we have a lot of work to do in that issue. When I said before that we are lacking of international cooperation, and also that we need to make the society, all stakeholders participate on the creation of new protected areas. The third thing I wanted to say, and I didn't say, was that we needed to increase the awareness level on society. Because I think, even people that live close to a shore in the Mediterranean Sea, they don't really know what's going on with fishing, with fisheries. We also have, so we need a public campaign in order to increase awareness, and I agree with that. But we need also to have proper data of the marine fishing industry, or even at the regional or state level. So, for example, regarding the fishing here in the Balearic Islands, we have a quite mix of data, and we don't really know sometimes who's fishing, how much is fishing, because some fishing licenses, they are expedited in a different region than here. The people then fish here, but they have a license from there, and the other way around, they have a license from the Balearics and they fish in another region in Spain. So we need to increase awareness through public campaigns, but we also need to put together data. And when I say data, I mean scientific data, but also data from the public administration. And yes, we need to increase the dialogue with fishing industries in order to protect those areas, because at some point, the future of the Mediterranean must be their future too. So if there is no future for us and for the Mediterranean, there will not be future for them. So I think, maybe we should dialogue more, but keeping in mind which are our goals and which is the situation, because the situation of the Mediterranean Sea, the Mediterranean biodiversity, must be defined by scientists. We need to follow the science, and if the science is basically, being blocked by some lobbies, we need to. I think we need to keep walking hand by hand with science, but at the same time, we need to try to dialogue with them.
Thank you, Pablo. We're coming very soon to the end of the session. We still have a few questions that are coming up. The next one is, can we discuss what the EU approach is? This person is asking, why is industrial fishing not being strictly regulated? Are violations dealt with on a case-by-case basis, as in the UK? Maybe, Puri, would you like to answer this one, take this on?
Yeah, okay. This is not an easy question to respond, because there's a lot of factors beyond the violation of the laws and the decision of taking policies that are inadequate for protection. So it's easy to blame to a single actor and say, okay, this is the responsible for that. So obviously the fishing lobbies are there in Brussels, and they are doing their good job for their objectives. That's out of question. But it's not only this. For me, there's something deeper and more relevant, is the lack of understanding of the crucial role that ocean ecosystems play for our quality of life, for our security, for life in the planet. So most of the politicians don't understand simply. They learn few sentences about, but they are not aware of the relevance of those ecosystems for our life. So this opens the door for accepting pressures or trying to be more balanced in front of different sectors and different demands. So if you don't understand what you are doing is absolutely inappropriate, you might try to be a very fair person by allowing different kinds of activities that are creating risk, in this case for the Mediterranean or for the ocean in general. And for me, this is one of the big problems, the lack of really deep understanding of the importance of the ocean in the case of the large majority of politicians. So this is illiteracy in terms of ecology and in terms of oceanography. And unfortunately, it's having very bad consequences because allow for those kind of pressures.
I think we couldn't agree more, and I see lots of agreement and thumbs up coming up from your as a reaction from your response. Safesh, I have a double question specifically for you from a member of the audience. Do you have any proposal offered to the current Turkish government with respect to increasing the number of MPAs, especially starting from Izmir to Fethiye? If yes, did the government reply already? And what are your comments about this situation? And also from the same person, in the short run, which international bodies do you call for action for further cooperation in Turkey?
Thank you, Isabel. We already contacted with the new government, and we will have upcoming meetings about the new upscale and about some fine-tunings of the MPAs, which part should be fully, which part should be highly. So there will be more extensions. In addition, there will be a big EU project starting next year in Turkey for 3 years, and it is all about expanding more and more fully and highly protected areas, plus sensitive habitats, as well as description and designation of Natura 2000 sites in Turkish waters. So the next 5 years is going to be a very intense period for Turkey, designating new MPAs, new fully protected areas, in addition to the one that we have managed to be declared in the last 3-4 years. So the most important things, the management plans, how the management plans will be completed, signed by the government, and who's going to implement that. And this new EU project has a great part in it, just bringing the Minister of Environment into the field to do all those monitoring and enforcement activities as a ministry. Because for the time being, the entire enforcement under the responsibility of Coast Guard and partly Minister of Agriculture. But in the management side, all the MPAs under the responsibility of Minister of Environment. But Minister of Environment has no capacity and no infrastructure in the field for the enforcement, monitoring, or any other activities technically. So these two projects will bring the Minister of Environment into the field, increase the capacity, increase the infrastructure. So that's going to be, really 5 promising years coming for the Turkish MPA network.
Thank you, Safesh. We are now concluding the session. And as a wrap up, I would really like to thank Puri, Zafer, and Pablo for your insightful contributions and for sharing your expertise and your time with everyone today. Also to thank Client Earth for yet another successful and interesting summit and for the work of their teams in support of protecting the ocean. And to everyone attending, thank you so much for your time. As a last word, I'd like to encourage you to celebrate and protect the ocean, which is our planet's life support system, tomorrow on World Ocean Day, but also every day of the year, because every day is Ocean Day for all of us. Thank you and good evening to everyone.